you?
Good morning. Doing good.
Morning, Jeff. Yeah, doing great, man.
Right on. It is Friday. It is actually a beautiful day in the Bay Area, which is fantastic. It's not, I don't know about you guys, but it's actually not super hot here yet. It's like 72. It's like perfect.
Yeah, not too bad.
Nice. So welcome. I know people will be jumping on the live here in just a minute or getting started on the live. I posted a little bit online, but as we get started, I want to say thank you to everyone who joins today, whether you watch live or catch this afterwards. We'll have it uploaded to YouTube too. So you're hearing this from me after you're already watching it. So it doesn't matter. But we're going to start doing these lives every week, every Friday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific time here on the BAS Bytes YouTube channel. So you can catch us every week talking about tech subjects, news updates, whatever and whenever. If you have comments, definitely submit them to the channel, and we will find a way to incorporate that into the subjects and whatever else. So people will start joining here pretty quick. But as we get started, I figured since this is our first session, might be good to do some quick intros with everybody and maybe talk a little bit about the news of the day first before we get started with our main topic for the live. Tom, since this is your first time, everybody, if you're just watching this is Tom's first time on one of our live streams for either BAS Bytes or Cisco Live. So welcome. Glad you're on, Tom. Why don't you start us off?
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, hey guys. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tom Freeman, I'm a systems architect here with the BAS team. And I've been with Cisco, I think I counted the other day, a little over 12 years now, believe it or not. It's kind of crazy how time flies with the company, but it feels like I've worked for 6, 7, maybe 8 different companies by now. And so I've been with this team here, the systems engineering, systems architect team, for about 3 years. So it's been awesome. In terms of updates, I just really have to shout out the awesome second wave of releases of the Cisco Live content this week. I think they went live on like Tuesday or something like that, and it introduced 180 additional videos to the Cisco On-Demand Learning Library. So we're now at something like 360 videos, maybe even more than that, including one session that I hosted as well. So if you're at all inclined, take a look. You can go to the Cisco On-Demand Learning Library, just type in Intersight or search for Tom Freeman, and you'll find my session. It's 2 hours all about automating your next data center deployment using the capabilities within Intersight. So,
dude, that is
love the Cisco Live content.
So cool. Not just that the Cisco Live content is up, but your session is up there, which is really rad. That's awesome. Pretty
sweet. My first time. Matt's a seasoned vet of the Cisco Live scene. For me, this is my first foray, so pretty stoked.
That's awesome, dude. Right on. Matt, why don't you go next?
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Okuma, I'm a systems architect on the BAS team as well, and I am going on. I'm like 9.5 years, almost made that 10-year milestone. I've learned so much, and it's great to be, even in these times, being able to virtually connect with people and stay connected and give some opinions and up and coming things. It's really great. I love this channel we've created, and I encourage everyone to join and participate to help us keep getting the word out, even though we can't meet with you in person. I think this is a great way to keep up what's top of mind to us. We're very close to all this stuff. We support a large amount of different customers. The great thing about commercial is they're all different types of customers. So over the years, we've all seen technology deployed across a whole bunch of different types of businesses. So I encourage you to make comments, ask questions, and support us on helping us drive relevant content as it applies to your different businesses.
Yeah. So awesome, dude.
Looking forward.
Thank you. Any fun news you want to shout out there, Matt?
Yeah, I think I think it's top of mind to me, stuff I've done this week. I spent a lot of time, I actually took a little breather and took some time and did a lot of different dCloud labs. And particularly, I focused on some of our SD-WAN labs. There's one up in dCloud, the dual data center, and I really enjoyed going through that. I probably went through it 3 times and just learned so much. I think it's the platform has come a long ways. There's also another one I did, which is the integration between ICE, SD Access, DNA Center, and ACI, and it's done really, really well. If you want to get sort of a glimpse of what that looks like to create consistent policy from data center all the way to your edge, I think it does a really good job. So dCloud, just go to dcloud.cisco.com, log in, find labs, search for them, spend some time if you have some free time at home to check some of those out.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Highly recommend it.
for anyone watching right now, we've got 3 viewers with us. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining. We'd love any comments you have or any feedback. 4 viewers now. 4. Woo! Thank you to the 4 viewers who are watching this live. This is amazing. If you are just joining, thank you so much for being here with us on our inaugural, I guess is the big multisyllabic word we can use for it. Our first live stream on the BAS Bytes channel. We'll be going live every week at 11 a.m. Pacific time here on Friday mornings. What Matt was just mentioning, or talking through if you missed it, is what's known as our demo cloud platform. So I have it up here on the screen, dcloud.cisco.com. You can go there and all you need is a Cisco user ID. You log in and you can run a ton of different labs. You spin it up, you schedule it. It's yours to work through. There's a guide and there's all kinds of technology. So if you want to get your hands on some of the Cisco tech on your own, totally free, just go jump on there and play around. There's a lot of good stuff for sure. Right on. Well, since this is our first one, we decided we want to have a cool topic to talk about, and Matt came up with a really fun one. Matt, do you want to kick us off on sort of what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah. So I thought for the first one with us, one thing that's top of mind to a lot of customers is just not only working with Cisco TAC, but just support in general. Like we've seen a lot of TAC escalations, or a lot of just customers in need of TAC support for various different reasons. But I think collectively, what I wanted to do today is get everyone's opinion on ways that we found that are to best engage with support. It doesn't have to even be Cisco support, just in general. I think there's a couple key themes that I'd like to highlight that I've seen, like, hey, when you kind of line these 3 things up, the cases or your resolution comes a lot quicker. And I think it's good just to step back and hear everyone's opinion and try to apply those to your, anyone that's listening's working support type role that they might be in to help with those issues. So I could kick off some of the things that come top to mind, and then obviously would like to get your guys' opinion as well. First is severity. So I wanted to talk through, I'll definitely characterize like how we rate severity at Cisco, but I think in general it's good to understand when you're calling in for support, the severity of the issue has to be clearly articulated to whoever you're working with for support. So in Cisco, we have like 3 different levels. Well, actually, there's 4, but 3 main levels of severity. Severity 1, 2, and 3, 1 being the most impact. And if we just break that down real quick, severity 1 is a network down situation, emergency type situation, right? You're going to get the highest level of response 24/7, every day of the week and the year, till it's resolved around the clock. Cisco is committed to getting it fixed. 2 is very similar. It's usually just during the business hours or business week that we'll keep that going. And 3 is it's impacted, but it's not critically down, right? And I'd like to get Tom's and Jeff, your opinion on the severity ratings also. But and they all have SLAs around how quick we need to respond. Like a severity 3, for instance, TAC has a 72 SLA between communications to you as a customer. If that's not adequate, then your issue is not a severity 3, it's severity 2. Right, and you need to commit resources to it to help us fix it. So the ultimate thing is severity 1 and 2 are really about there's something broken and we're going to fix it and we're going to work on it till it's done. So I think that's the key differentiator between those 3 different severities, right? And my advice would be, if your management or people are definitely breathing down your throat and stuff, it's not a severity 3. That's not a kick your feet back and wait for updates back and forth. So that's the biggest advice I could add around severity. And Tom and Jeff, I'd love your comments as well.
Actually, and Tom, before you jump in there, we did have one comment from the audience. Dave Gridley, thanks for joining us, man. I really appreciate it. He actually did have a really good question. So I don't know, Tom, if you want to tackle this or if we want to move on and come back to Dave's question, but what if I set a 3 issue, not network down, but business critical top priority for the org?
So the question was, what if it is business critical?
Yeah, it says what if my issue is severity 3, not network down, but it is business critical, like top priority for their org?
So we have a pretty clean way of identifying what SEV 1, 2, and 3 really entail. And in the description of SEV 2, even though network severely degraded is one of the top most things we watch out for, there's also the consideration of significant impact to business operations. So we ask that folks, work with us to get the right level of severity. But if you are feeling like there's a major impediment to business, that definitely qualifies as a Sev 2. And we'll talk in a few minutes about different ways you can seek escalation and different ways you can get a little bit more of insight into the progress being made around your attack case. But I would say, hearing that, if the network is not down, and there's a significant impact to BizOps, that's Sev 2. If there's a critical impact to business operations, you kind of have to make that call. Ultimately, as a team, your account team, your TAC team, we're absolutely going to do whatever we can to make it right. If you feel, that this is a severity 1 issue, things are lighting on fire, whether or not the network's down, you got to make that call ultimately, and we'll be here to support you. But I think one important thing to note around the severities is the amount of attention your case is really going to get. I'm actually I had a little workflow here. So if you open up a Sev 1 or a Sev 2, there's an automatic escalation process that kicks off in the background that most people aren't really aware of. So if there is basically no immediate action taken place with respect to these cases, and you've got a Sev 1, these are kind of approximate times based on an assessment that was in 2018. So they might be slightly different now. But if a Sev 1 occurs, no action is taken, or it's not resolved within an hour, the TAC manager is notified. Within 4 hours, TAC director is notified. Within 24 hours, the SVP could potentially be notified. And then with 48 hours, the notification could potentially go to Chuck, to our CEO. And so for a Sev 2, the timeframes are a little bit more lax. Within 4 hours, it'll go to attack manager. Within 24 hours, to attack director, and so on. But what you can see there is that Sev 1s are no joke. So just make sure you use the system appropriately. And even a Sev 3 is going to get some pretty good attention from the TAC team.
The one addition I wanted to make to all of that, and it's just a small point, but I think it's a good one to remember for anybody out there, is if you need support, you need to get on the phone, you need to get support, you need to get attention to it. Even if it is a Sev, ignoring the term Sev 3, but in your mind, it's that level of severity. Know that if you open a case online, because that's convenient for you or it's simple for your workflow, no big deal. Know that when you open up a case online, it's automatically opened up as a Sev 4. So even lower priority than a severity 3. And once it gets queued and some definition gets put into it, it can be moved to a Sev 3. I say that because there's been many times when I've talked to customers who open something online, like, why aren't we getting the attention we want super quick? It's like, if you need attention to something, Cisco TAC and Cisco as a company, we want you to call us. Call the number, get the person who's opening the case to set the right severity. And they'll even ask you, do you want to stay on hold until we have a person available for you? Regardless of what severity level you're opening, you can do that. You may have to wait longer depending on what severity you're opening as. But I would say always, if you need a case with attention very quickly, regardless of its level, call and ask. If you do it online, it's going to go into a queue, and it's put into a queue with other work tickets. It'll be worked at a lower severity, no big deal. Just something to be aware of. It's not a bad thing. It's just be aware of that when you go to open up your cases, because the last thing you want to have happen is your personal priority as a business and as an IT or a network operator or whatever is up here, and you get inserted into a system here because you're working through an automated tool and you're not aware of that, and it creates a frustration level for you. And we never want that to be the case. Yeah.
One thing I would add too is, just because you're the customer, you have the same escalation power as we do as your potential account team. So that's one really neat thing. It's a great power that we give you. You can call in and do everything. Any words that you say would be treated the same way as words that we say. I think that's a good thing to make sure people know. If you need an escalation, the most something you can say is, I want to speak to the TAC duty manager. So the TAC duty manager, there is a duty manager that's overseeing the entire TAC organization and all the tickets and severities and escalations that are coming in. He is the duty manager on shift. He's managing all of that. So he will absolutely connect with you and talk with you and understand what you need to get you squared away. So that's a great piece of advice there too, that those simple words, if you say them, or Tom or Jeff or I say them, they're treated the same exact way. So a little bit of advice there.
Yeah.
When calling in.
And in fact, if I may share my screen here quickly, Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
There is a nice little guide that we have. Let me go ahead and share this Chrome tab. And I think this PDF here is going to be what I'm looking for. So this is a PDF version of the guide. You can find this if you just search for Cisco Technical Services Resource Guide. There's a static HTML version of this as well. This is just a 2-pager that gives you an idea of ways you can contact TAC, what those severities really mean. And as Jeff mentioned before, we do have a Sev 4 where it's just maybe you got a quick question. But as Matt outlined a moment ago, there is a number of options that you have at your disposal to escalate a TAC case. And so the duty manager is, Mr. or Mrs. Get Things Done. They
Hey,
have
Tom, could you zoom that in just a little bit so the audience can see it?
Yeah.
They can frame up. Thank you. Yeah.
Call,
I think this is really good for people to be able to read very clearly. Awesome.
Yeah, agreed. So those duty managers absolutely will get things done. They've seen and heard it all before. But before you get to the duty manager route, there are some other options. You can always ask the engineer to open a collaboration request. You can ask them to maybe check with their team lead. You can just ask them to maybe check with someone else or even engage their manager. So those are options as well. If you think maybe there's hope before going to the DM, but then as Matt said, asking for the duty manager is absolutely essential sometimes to really get things going. So just an FYI, awesome sheet. It goes through and gives you some more details and also provides some best practices in terms of what you should have ready to go before you open up your case. So,
Tom, is that something we can make available to customers or to anybody really?
Yeah,
okay,
this is a public document. Again, you can search for Cisco Technical Services Resource Guide, or we can maybe share the direct link to this page as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. When you have a minute, if you could drop that in the comments, that would be fantastic. So anybody watching this video later on will have access to that. And actually, something that came through as you were talking, I think is a really good note from Rama, who's also on our team, who did work in TAC for a long time. He had this note to say, and I think this is relevant for everyone. Severity 1 and 2 cases, you need to call into TAC. You cannot open a Sev 1 or a Sev 2 online, and it's done very intentionally. When you call in and you tell to your point earlier, Matt, when you tell that case opener, this is a Sev 1, I have a network down emergency. Their responsibility at that point is to then do, as Rama says here, a warm handoff to a senior engineer to take it on, so that you will wait for a period of time on the phone, but you stay on that line. They will get you to a person so you can start actively working the network down emergency right away. That's important to Cisco that we do that for you. And something to note that's really good for any CCIEs out there who didn't know this, you can create Sev 1 cases online through the tool as a convenience thing for you if you have a CCIE, because there's an assumption there of your knowledge and your expertise as you've gone through a problem, so that if that you basically, we trust that that this is a Sev 1. So thanks, Ron, for submitting that. It's a really good point.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to highlight too. Let me see if I could share my screen here. First time doing it on the
Absolutely.
live stream.
Technology is awesome.
Okay. My browser blocked it. Yeah, I was just going to go to tacconnect.cisco.com. If someone could pull that up, my browser's blocking the share, but wanted to show people how they can engage with our new TAC bot.
You want me to pull that up?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, Tom, that'd be fantastic.
Sure, yeah, happy to drive.
This is cool. I'm glad you're doing this, bringing this up, Matt, because this is huge.
Yeah.
All right, maybe not.
All right, Matt, I'll be your Vanna White.
Yeah, so if anyone out there listening or watching this back, just go to tacconnect.cisco.com, what Tom just did, and you'll see two things. On the left, you'll see where you can engage with our WebEx team application. This will basically create a Teams room for you where you can engage with a digital assistant, I call it a bot, where you can ask stuff about your case, escalate your case, do really cool things. But say your company doesn't use our WebEx Teams and you just want to engage in this new way with your for your TAC case. Tom, if you click on the right one there, that's just a web interface. Same experience as if you were using full-blown Cisco Teams. But you could see here, if you had a case number, you could paste one in there and interact digitally, like this digital assistance with your TAC case. So good things here is, we realize as at Cisco TAC that most of the calls coming into TAC Frontline were for an existing case. So by creating this, we're cutting a lot of heavy, a lot of burdensome mundane tasks out and being able to do them very quickly with this TAC bot. So it's actually built into your My Cases on Cisco.com. Also, you'll see engage with the bot, And it's very simple to escalate. I actually have a lot of customers using this to escalate their cases now, and it works really, really well. First, it'll try the local TAC manager of the engineer assigned. If they're not available, it'll then try to call the duty manager. If they're not available, you'll go to frontline where they'll wait till they could hunt those people down for you. So, and it works really clean. It's constantly being improved, but highly recommend people checking this out. If you don't have Teams, like I said, you could just use it through your case or through this web interface here, and it works really, really good. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually experienced this with a couple different customers, and Matt, you and I have talked about it before, but I've noticed that there's a number of customers that whether they use Teams or the web interface, they've given us feedback that this has been really helpful. Not that they don't want to reach out to either of you as SEs or anybody else they know at Cisco. It's just nice when they can kind of in their own work stream, like I'm troubleshooting an issue, I'm running a case, I've got other work that I'm doing that are priorities at my company. It's nice to be able to go into WebEx Teams or to this web page and just simply say, look, I just need to get this thing done real quick. And I can ping this person or I can interact with this bot and it will go do this work for me. Saves a lot of time. And I mean, at the end of the day, one of our goals with our TAC organization is to really make sure that customers, we need to have empathy for our customers that, coming from the customer side too, before I was at Cisco, like that interaction with TAC is immense because a lot of times I'm getting, myself or others who work in the industry are getting, asked by our leadership chain, hey, where's this case at? Because it may be a big deal. Like what's going on with it? Why isn't this done? So knowing that you don't even have to pick up the phone, you could just interact with the bot and get probably a lot of the information you need to have right away before you stop what you're doing to go work back on that again. It just, the whole idea is to help balance your time so that we make it as effective for you as we can.
Yep. And I would add one more thing real quick on the bot. If you can actually now in your case, TAC case, choose as your communication method to be this type of interaction. And what it'll do is it'll create a one-on-one Teams room with your TAC engineer. It'll archive all your communication. You can upload diagrams, meet with them through the room that it creates. And when it's all done, it's all archived and put into the TAC case, just like regular TAC case notes. So I see a lot of people preferring that method than email and even phone calls for, like severity 3 cases, for instance. It just helps drive the consistency through the case, having a persistent room where they could work with the TAC engineer versus email.
Yeah, completely agree. I think we've done some amazing work to make the interaction with TAC more autonomous, right? And to give a lot more power to the customer or the end user so that they don't need to necessarily go through layers of management or contact their account teams every time they've got something going awry. And some awesome commands in here that you can see. We've got the ability to get the latest action plan. So maybe you're dealing with a kind of a longer TAC case where potentially there was a bug opened and the TAC engineer said, hey, this will be fixed in the next feature release, which is coming out a month from now. Maybe sometimes they'll keep the case open until you can actually apply that next patch and verify that it's worked. If you're coming back to a case, you've inherited a case from someone else, you can use that to go ahead and see what are the next steps. What is, what is the TAC engineer working on? What should I be working on? If in fact you do have a bug associated, you can see all the bugs that may be potentially associated with your case. You can get RMA status, which is super nice if you do have a faulty device and you want to understand what RMAs are associated. And beyond this tool, I think Cisco has done a lot to really empower the individual to self-service. So unless you wanted to share a little bit more on the TAC Connect bot, I was going to share another little thing that I think is helpful with respect to TAC cases, but just maybe a handy tip in general, Matt.
Yeah. While you do that, one last comment I wanted to make on there is that, and both of you have mentioned this already, that customers we interact with, and probably a lot out there, probably know that they can reach out to their sales account team to help out with escalations. You both have done a really good job showing how they can automate that, so they don't necessarily have to. Know that though, to your point, Matt, if you opt to use the WebEx Teams version of this, where you're interacting through WebEx Teams, should you need to, when you reach out to your SE or your AM for help, you can also add them. Just go ahead, or they can add themselves into that team space. So that way they're alongside with you with the TAC engineer. That way they're getting the same communications you are. They're seeing the same interactions. Matt, I know I'm in one right now. I'm looking at it on my other screen for one of your customers where we have an internal one that we're doing logistics internally, but you have the customer facing one that TAC is in as well. And we can interact all together and see the same things they are. So to your point, Tom, it really makes a lot of this communication more autonomous, and it removes a lot of hurdles for getting the communication done, which is super important.
Yeah, it does. So in the vein of autonomy and empowering the end user, I think a lot of people know about this, but it's something I make sure everyone I work with knows about. This is the tools and resources page. So if you just search Cisco tools, or if you go to this URL here, the tools catalog, you're going to see a ton of awesome Cisco tools. And the reason I bring this up is because, let's say you have a device and you're not quite sure if it's covered under warranty. You can use this thing here and actually go into one of our devices, or sorry, one of our tools here, and actually see if your device is covered. So I think it's called the coverage checker or something like that, device coverage checker. One of many tools we have available, and hopefully this stays on the same tab, but you can use this to quickly see, is my device covered? Where is it potentially located, and so on, just using the serial number. Just one example of the tool set that's available in here, and there's a ton in this page. So definitely take a peek at that in addition to the WebEx, or the TAC Connect bot if you haven't seen it before.
Tom, what was the URL for that? Remind me.
Here, I'll link it to you right here. You can just search Cisco tools, but I'll send it to you in WebEx Teams here.
Perfect. I'll post. So for everyone watching, I will post copies of, I just put a link in there. I put links in the chat for our dCloud platform, the TAC Connect bot. So you can see those links in there and access them whenever you want to. And then I'll add the other URL in here for everyone too, so that that's accessible to you. I'll flash them on the screen here in a minute, but definitely if you're watching this afterwards, definitely look in the chat or in the comments and you'll see the posts in there with these resources. This is the one Tom was just mentioning. So that's not clickable, but at least you get an idea that it's out there. Well, guys,
I'll add one quick thing on the tools. I use the mobile app also, so I would highly recommend anyone to download that mobile app. You can actually scan the serial number of a device, and it'll check to see if it's covered. So it's just the Cisco tech support app, and it's constantly being improved. But you can manage all your TAC cases and do really cool things from the mobile app. And then two other things I'll add, just tips and tricks that I just want to call out. One is time zone. So I highly recommend you find out what time zone your engineer's in. Make sure it lines up to you. We're talking about severity 3 cases, because without that, you guys are going to be working different times of the day, and the communication and consistency of the case is going to fall apart. And the second is, if there's a, when you're working with certain Cisco devices, there's things like show tech or just log bundles like Dart files for AnyConnect. If those are the things that are asked for automatically when an engineer needs to dive in, if you know that, just upload them when you open the case, get those. Some of our tools like Intersight, which Tom did that great presentation on for Cisco Live, you'll learn about. A lot of that stuff's being automated with Call Home and different things like that across our portfolio to get the initial logs up there. But to be safe, it doesn't hurt. The more information they have, the quicker you're going to get your problem solved. So
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Those are the last things I got.
Yeah, I think it's always a good point of note that when you're opening up a new case, any logs that, even if they're basic logs you can think of that you can just like, look, I can do a show sys log, or I can do a show tech show tech support, or whatever it happens to be. If you know some of those basics already that you can just go get, just open the case, load them in there. The engineer may say, thanks, I don't need those, but I need something else. But oftentimes they're going to want the thing that you already shared. So it'll save yourself a lot of time. Tom, any final thoughts before we wrap up for the day?
I'd just say, if you're not intimately familiar with the different tiers of support that we offer, if perhaps I say, what's the difference between SNTC or your software support, basic, your Swiss coverage, something to know, just so we've got a number of different tiers of coverage in terms of the way we can support an RMA of a hardware component. We have a variety of ways we can support both individual software components and entire solutions. So maybe just if you're not familiar with that content, just know that we have a variety of flavors to really help at any level of criticality in your infrastructure, and maybe just talk to your account team and do a refresher on that, because there's a lot of different tiers, and that's one pain that I experience quite regularly is someone assumes something is covered or that it's covered at a certain degree, and it's never fun to realize that you're not appropriately covered when you need it most. And just to Jeff's point earlier, we're always going to do what's right and help you out, but it makes things a lot smoother and may avoid intervention from the account team if you've already got everything covered nicely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Tom, Matt, thank you so much for being on today. This has been fantastic. And thank you for everybody who's been watching. We've had a few viewers come in and out. If you have any comments or questions that you forgot to ask this time around, once I get this loaded into the tool, you feel free to ask more comments or add content there, and we'll keep it going. And if nothing else, try to tune in next week. So it'll be next Friday morning, 11 a.m. Pacific time. You can get notified by that by clicking the subscribe button, which is someplace down here below Matt Okuma in the bottom bar down there. So hit the subscribe button wherever it happens to be down here somewhere. And if you like the video, definitely give a big thumbs up. It really helps the channel. We're going to keep bringing new content. If you have questions, if you have topics you're interested in, just post them in the comments when the video is loaded. And we will see you all really soon. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks,
Bye, everybody.
Guys.
Bye, everyone.